Today in our 2015 GMC Terrain, we're going to be taking a look at and installing the Blue Ox base plate kit with removable arms, part number BX1689. Here's what it looks like on your vehicle once it's installed. As you can see, there's not very much of it sticking out. Gives you a nice hidden look. Does have attachment points to match your electrical connection. Your safety chain loops. These covers are provided with your kit to keep out the dirt and grime. You can simply slap in your arms. You just put them in, twist, and it locks. That's secure. Now you're ready to hook up your tow bar and hit the road. Now if you don't have a Blue Ox tow bar, you can get adapters to use on your Roadmaster style tow bars as well. This is an easy bolt-on design. Doesn't require any welding. You're going to drill a few holes. You'll have to modify the back side of your bumper by just trimming out some of the plastic on the back side. Now let's go ahead and show you how to install it. To begin our install, we've gone ahead and opened up our hood. Now it's going to be necessary to remove these 4 T20 screws. Go ahead and take those out and set them aside. We're going to hang on to these. They're going to be reinstalled later on. There's going to be 2 push pins, one on the other side, closest to the front. We're going to take a screwdriver, just pry up on the center, and we'll pop that out. We'll do the same thing on the other side of the vehicle. After we took our plastic push pin out, we can pop this up and you can actually see where your push pin went through to hold on your fascia. A quick tech tip, you might want to take your vehicle and turn the wheels to the left or the right so you can make access to your bolts. Now we're going to need to remove a couple of push pins and some more Torx screws on the inner side of the fender well here. We'll pop out the center. Set those aside. Take our T20, take out the Torx. And we'll repeat this process for the passenger side as well. Now we'll come to the bottom side and remove these 2 7mm screws on the other side from the bottom of the bumper. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Now we can remove the wiring for the back of the fog lights if your car is equipped. We're just going to pry out on the clips and slide the plug out, and we'll repeat that on the other side. Now we'll be ready to remove the front fascia. Get a second set of hands to give you help. And we'll simply pull out, give it a firm tug, and we'll lift it off. And we'll set it aside so it doesn't get damaged. Now we're going to need to remove our ambient air temp sensor. So we'll take a panel tool, or you can use a flat bladed screwdriver. Just get underneath it. Kind of wiggle it up out, and we'll set it aside for a later installation. Now I'll remove this air baffle that goes into the air box. There's 2 10mm nuts. And just kind of wiggle it out and pull it down from the air box, and we'll set this aside. If your vehicle is equipped with a power steering cooler, we're going to go ahead and take out the 2 10mm bolts. Let it hang down. Our base plate is going to go in between here, and there's some supplied brackets that's going to relocate your cooler. Now it's going to be necessary to remove this reinforcement bracket. There's going to be 2 15mm bolts here and 2 10s on the inside here. Now we're not going to reinstall this, and we're just going to give it back to our customer. Once we have those loose, we'll take our 15mm bolts out. It's going to take a little maneuver, and you're going to have to slide it up a little bit, and you're going to have to yank it out of position. We're going to have to trim away some of our front of our frame here. We're going to come up to the bottom of our bumper and come straight across. We're going to cut off all this area in here. And we'll do the same thing on the other side, but it's a different angle. Now we'll take a Sawzall, or you can use a cutoff wheel, and we're going to remove that part. And we can clean up the excess with a grinder. Now we'll take a paint pen and we'll just cover up all of our bare metal surfaces so we don't have any rust and corrosion. You want to be sure to do this to both sides. Now, as you can see, this tab is bent back on the corner. So we're going to take a pair of Channellocks and we'll just bend it flat. Our base plate is going to fit in between this. So we want to have enough room for it to be able to slide in there easily. And we'll repeat that on the other side. Now we're going to need to trim out this plastic kick out here where our ambient temp sensor was connected. We're just going to take a rotary tool. We're going to cut this piece off and remove that where it kicks out. We'll take our razor knife and clean up the edges. Now we'll take our base plate. We're going to slide it up. And if you're doing this by yourself, you just take a clamp. You can clamp it into position. Help hold it up there. Once we have it up in position, we want to have 1 1/8 inch between this lip here of the body and the top of our base plate. We're going to go ahead and make sure we have it the same on both sides. So we have right at 1 1/8. Then we're going to mark and drill our first hole, which is going to be through the pinch weld at the bottom side. So we'll go ahead and we'll mark that one, drill it and put the bolt in place. Then we can level out our base plate to make sure it's going to be in line with the vehicle. We're going to take a 13/32 drill bit. As soon as we get a good starting point in there, we can take a smaller bit and we'll drill the pilot hole, and then we can enlarge it to the right size. Now we'll take our 3/8 by 1 1/2 inch bolt, lock washer, and nylon lock nut. Take some red Loctite, put a little bit on there, slip it through the hole, and put on our lock washer and our nylon lock nut. We'll snug that down a little bit, then we can drill out the other side. Once we have our 2 bottom bolts in place, we're going to make sure that we're sitting level out to the front. So when your tow bar is in place, it's going to ride level with the vehicle. If it's not, you can simply tap down on it with a rubber mallet or up till you get it just where it's level. Okay, we're going to start by marking all of the holes. We'll use our large 13/32 drill bit so we can get a center point. Then we can take a smaller bit and drill our pilot holes. Now we can enlarge them to the 13/32 size. These are going to be 2-inch bolts, 2" by 3/8 with a lock washer, and there's going to be a weld nut on a wire that we're going to push in through an access hole in the bottom of the frame, and we're going to line it up. Let's make sure we put some red Loctite on these bolts also before we place them in there. It's going to take a little maneuvering to get those lined up. You're going to have to bend your wire one way or the other until you get it right behind the hole. We've got that one caught. If you can't get it to break loose, you can just pull out as much as you can get out. Take a pair of side cutters, cut it off, then push it up out of the way. That'll give you a little access room to get your next nut in place. Once it's started, run that one down. We'll do the same thing. We'll just pull it out, cut off the piece, the excess, and shove it back up inside. Once we tighten this side down, we can go on to the other side, and we'll drill out our holes and put in our nut certs and bolts. Once we have them all snugged down, we can go back with our torque specs that are in our instructions and set them to the torque. One on the bottom will have to hold the back side. And we'll repeat on the other side. Now we're going to take the 2 supplied brackets to reattach our power steering cooler. Pry up on it a little bit and we'll slip the bracket into position, and we're going to use the original holes with our new hardware. We'll slip that in there. Once it's in place, we can put our nut on the top side. We have a locking nut on a 1/4-inch bolt. Now we can put the other side on. We'll take our 1/4-inch bolt, slip it through. We'll put our locking nut. And we'll do the same on the other side. Now we can torque them down. Now we'll take these supplied flat washers. There's a total of 6. We're going to put 3 on each of these studs. And we'll take our baffle, place it back up in the hole, fit it into your air box, and we'll slip it back over the studs. Now, one last thing we have to do before we start putting our cover back on, we're going to have to place our safety cables around the frame rail. And they're long enough, we're going to go around twice. And we're going to attach them with the supplied connector. This is in the event if your base plate was to come unattached from your vehicle for some reason. This is going to keep the tow bar attached to the car by these safety cables. And we'll tighten those up with a pair of pliers. And we're going to repeat this on the other side. You just want to make sure that it's going to be away from anything that's moving and it's not pinching any wires or lines. We can take a couple of zip ties and we can just tie it to the side so it's going to be completely out of the way of anything that moves. Just a little added security so we know it's not going to come in contact with anything. And keep them from dragging down low on the ground. The last thing we have to mount is our ambient air temp sensor. We're just going to take a 1/4-inch drill bit and we're going to drill a hole up here in this shroud and reattach it. And it just snaps back in, and that way it's going to catch some clean air. Now we're going to go ahead and test fit our bumper cover to see if we have to trim any of it. I'm going to pop the inner styrofoam part out of the bumper, just squeeze the tabs, pull it up out, and we're going to try this and see if it's going to fit on there without any trimming. It looks like this is going to fit just nice. You might, on some cars, you might have to trim up on this corner here a little bit, but ours is going to fit around it, so it'll be okay. We'll just go ahead and leave that in place, and we can set our bumper cover up there and test fit it to see if we're going to have to do any trimming. One note, while you have the fascia off, if you're going to be doing any wiring or a braking system, now would be the time to run your wires as we have here and just set them aside. And if you have a breakaway switch you'll be installing, that would be the time to install that also. We've figured out that we need to remove this piece right here from this tab to this one. So we're going to take a rotary tool. We're going to cut it. You want to be careful you don't cut too deep because that's where a seam is and you don't want to come through the outside of your bumper cover. And we'll repeat this for the other side. Now we can retest fit it and see if it's going to clear. Pay close attention. You have your 2 tabs for your wiring plug on the outside. And we'll just slip it around. Snap it back into position. Now we'll go ahead and reinstall all the Torx screws across the top. We'll take our large push pins, put the 2 on the top. Now before you reinstall the side of the fender well, if your car is equipped with fog lights, it'd be easier just to go ahead and plug them in now. Just snaps back on, then we can put our cover back on. Now repeat for the other side. Then we'll go ahead and reinstall the bottom half of our inner fender well that attaches to the bottom of the bumper cover. It just snaps into that little hole there. And we have 2 screws that go up in there. And we'll repeat that on the other side. And that's going to do it for our look at and install of the Blue Ox base plate kit with removable arms, part number BX1689 on our 2015 GMC Terrain.